What about you?
Yeah.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, I once again, it's not going to notify us because it
Okay,
only
hey.
does it once. But yes, I'm now recording, so yeah, and we can decide whether or not we want to post this later.
I'm going to probably swear. It's just the habit. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I was recording it and I looked over it and I realized how much I swear is like it it's incessant. But yeah, so don't worry about that.
Okay.
Okay. Uh yeah, so I guess we can just get right into it. Since this is a topic that you kind of suggested, do you want to start or do you want me to go first?
Let's have you go first. I looked
Okay.
over what you sent me, but I didn't read it like it, deeply.
It is like a 17-page article, yeah.
Academia, such a cool and stupid thing.
That article though, seriously, I know you will really like it if you have the time to sit down and really flesh through it. I get the feeling that I think you would really like it.
Um, well, so I did look at it, I promise. And I know I said you should start, but maybe I'll point out one of the things that it discussed I saw was the institutional traumas that are perpetuated and how people who are complicit in perpetuating institutions are perpetuating trauma. Um, and I find that very fascinating because I think the institution of the Democratic Party has perpetuated some trauma culturally. Uh, and people are waking up to that reality. And I'm not, okay, let's also be fair. So has the Republican Party. But you just seem attached to the Democratic Party. So many people seem attached to the party, and I don't get it. It's like Stockholm syndrome.
Well, I don't know why you've gotten that impression from me, especially after all the previous conversation we had about voting and whatnot. It's like, dude, if there was a Republican I thought was worth voting for, I'd vote for him. Like that's all there is to it.
Okay, sorry. I apologize then.
Yeah, that's fine. That's an interesting first route that you decided to go. And I guess I was the article talks about a lot of historical trauma, like the Jews, Armenians, things like that, like things that are a little older than what you're talking about, um, which is I would say more about like the culture war than cultural trauma, because I don't know if the actions that you're referring to have really ruminated long enough to create trauma. Because especially within a culture, like that's something that takes time unless you have a crazy event like the Holocaust.
I do have one example actually. Um, Welfare workers telling black women to not have men in the house so they can then get welfare, which shot the rate of marriage in the African American community down. And we probably could talk about the trauma of fatherlessness. So that's one example. But when you say the culture war, that's something a lot of people are either disagreeing is occurring or disagree to the scale or scope of how it's playing out. And you mentioned the Jews and the Armenians. So how far back are you saying the culture war goes? When did it
Oh,
start?
well, that's I wasn't talking about the culture war when I was talking about Jews and Armenians. I was
Okay.
talking about actual cultural trauma.
Okay. Okay.
The Jews are like the best example. They've literally been through traumatic experiences as a culture since their existence.
Yeah, they have. I'm not arguing that, so it's like shoot.
No, yeah, and so the I guess the other modern, like most modern example I was gonna try to bring up with you about cultural traumas is and this is kind of a like left and right wing thing. Like it is the cultural trauma that America experienced from the Vietnam War, and you know, the whole countercultural revolution and all that.
Dirty
um
fucking hippies.
yeah, exactly. uh and that's um yeah, I'm really interested to see what sort of trauma is created through the sort of, I don't know what you want to label it as, but the democratic institutions that have been creating trauma. Um, I'd be interested to see how that plays out. Like really, because you could be totally right. I just think time will tell.
Maybe we should give a definition of trauma.
Yeah. Uh,
Um, I
I think
don't like. We could go on Merriam-Webster or Oxford English dictionary, but we could also then just talk about not I don't know, anecdotal definitions, but yeah. So as we're talking about trauma, you're talking mainly about psychological trauma, correct? Um, which is most relevant because who really cares about our physiological trauma, right? Um, there are so many directions I want to go with this, like the psychological trauma associated with not having agency in life. Um,
Would you say that the sort of like, sorry to interrupt you, I'm really sorry, but would you say that like the sort of like healthcare issues that not the like universal health, the fact that Americans are so unhealthy, doesn't that sort of seem like a physiological trauma that might play out?
that's I think in that article they talk about. I don't know if they use this term, but this is a term that should be used. The normalization of traumas. So we normalize things to such an extent that you're absolutely right. It's a fucking epidemic um, that nobody is talking about. Or when you try to talk about it, you're criticized as someone who is fat shaming.
Yeah,
Um,
and I feel like fat shaming is kind of just like one small part of it.
Fat shaming is a small part of a tentacle of intersectional identity politics, intersectionality. It's just it's it is you can use almost any situation to put someone down. So we're getting so many we're getting so sidetracked.
Dude, this happens every time, and I actually really like it. And yeah,
Well, so because it's there's layers to everything. And so when we talk about trauma, there's first the personal trauma that we experience and perpetuate as individuals, but then as individuals who participate in systems and organizations and institutions. So like religion or people who work at the CIA, two people who are perpetuating shitty systems that are traumatizing a lot of people, not everyone. But then there's like the cultural trauma around the fact that we allow the CIA to be a thing, which comes back full circle to the citizen, the self responsibility of the citizen. which let's throw in that fourth dimensional element of having what I always talk about, the ruling class and the oppressors and the elite, who like the fact that we're dumb and fat and docile because we're easier to control. But as soon as you start talking about this stuff, conspiracy theorist. And I realize that I am theatrical, and that's because this is years of pent up shit that I want to talk about, but it is getting harder and harder to stray from the narrative. As soon as you do, you're cut down. What's that expression? The head that, or the weed that stands tall gets cut, or whatever. There's an expression, something along those lines.
Yeah.
The pressure.
Squeaky wheel gets greased.
No, that's AOC, but that's a whole different story.
Oh, okay.
We'll talk about her later.
Once again, you brought up Kamala Harris in our last conversation. It's like, I know she's going to be the vice president probably, but it's like, once again, we've talked about how much I care about the executive branch. So yeah, that's what I'll say about that. To sort of branch off, because not branch off, but bring it back around, I guess, is yeah, a lot of what I'm talking about is psychological trauma for sure. And one aspect of that I wanted to talk about was memory repression. And that's why I also said individual and cultural and memory repression were the three things I really wanted to talk about, because we just talked about cultural trauma. We could go a lot further, believe me, and we probably will. But I was curious about kind of relating memory repression, which is a big aspect of the psychological study of trauma. But I kind of, like I said, I wanted to maybe relate it to some individual traumas. But I don't know if this is really the platform for that. But what I would, though, I can bring it to a cultural place and say, or like bring up memory repression, because what I've always found interesting is I read the book Night by Elie Wiesel. Most of us have. He waited 10 years after he was a survivor of the Holocaust to write that. And it's crazy because it's so vivid, and it's like, dude, how did you remember all that 10 years later? And that's what I think is like, when you have a truly traumatic experience, even if you haven't like thought about it or like actively tried to remember it, when you do, it will be right there, because that's how real and intense traumatic experiences are. I think they create some of the most vivid memories.
I'm a little confused, because I can see how, yes, a traumatic memory can do that. In one of my earlier videos, I talked about when I helped pull someone off a bridge, like a suicide jumper. That's a memory.
Tell me about that. Sorry, you gotta tell me that story at some time.
Yeah, that's a memory that I remember a lot of little details about. But you prefaced all of that by talking about memory repression, which I'm under the impression is where you try and bury a memory, so it's like you can't access it.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I'm not using the right word with repression. It's I don't know what it is. Validity. I don't know what word to use to describe what I'm trying to talk about as far as memory relates to trauma.
Well, yeah. Well, so that's the thing, is there's like two paths. There's always multiple paths, but usually two polarities that paths emerge from towards the center. One of them is that you remember a lot of details, and then the other is that you don't remember any. So repressed memories from traumatic experiences, like I don't have a linear sort of timeline of my own life, which is one of the most surreal feelings, because you'd think you'd be able to remember what happened when you were 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. But at some point, like, memories kind of start getting grouped into stages of life. And so if money was not an issue, I would go to school and get a doctorate in psychology because this shit is so fascinating. And so do you want to talk about, well, okay, so now let's bring in the cultural sort of repression of memory, or that normalization of trauma. And like, the indigenous people is a great example. It's a great example. To
Just
where
read my mind here.
uh, I love so much about Washington, except for the goddamn fucking rain.
Yeah.
And so there's so much going on. Like, I'm going to not use any names, but we might have a friend in common who is an indigenous individual who's going through some stuff, and who has some family who's going through some stuff. And this is not my place to talk about stuff, but like, there are issues that the tribes are dealing with that are unique kind of to the tribe. Like, every group deals with addiction issues, but like, I from what I understand, the tribe had not the any specific tribe, but like, generational trauma. There we go. Let's bring that element in. Our indigenous people have been screwed over, and we need to be honest about it. We've whitewashed. And here's the thing. I agree with so many social justice warriors on so much. I really do, y'all. We whitewashed what happened to them. And so my heart goes out to that individual, because like, yeah. But then also, generational trauma. And Washington, I took over. You can talk now.
No, it's fine. You literally brought up something that I don't know if there's really more that I could say, except that like I can bring in some numbers because I'm a history guy. There was something like 10 million natives when the European conquest happened, and they now make up like 2% of the American population. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. Like, it's almost one of the closest examples to a complete genocide that has ever happened. Because what's interesting about genocide, and I just took a class on it, so I'm like fascinated with the concept.
Tell us more.
And the thing about genocide is, I mean, you get into rough waters when you start to use the terms successful genocide, but a successful genocide results in oblivion, a culture or people being totally eradicated and forgotten about forever. Like, and that happened. There's probably more genocided cultures than there are like living cultures.
Is that imperialism? Is that?
No, I was talking about like Genghis Khan in the 1400s, literally taking over like most of Europe and Asia and wiping out cultures as he was doing so.
But wasn't that like, isn't that
Zulu.
imperialism, but just like by a different name?
No, yeah,
Or
yes,
conquest, I
no,
guess.
it's imperialism, I guess. Before, and that was something else in that article I showed you, is like, these are terms of modernity. Like, when you get into these discussions, it's all about modernity. And yes, Shaka Zulu and Genghis Khan were imperialists, 100%. But they didn't have yes, the Mongol was referred to as an empire. So yes, you're right. And the Zulu nation was the Zulu nation, but it was an empire in Africa in the 1500s. And Shaka Zulu literally just went through Africa genociding cultures. So yeah, I'm sorry I went off on a tangent there, but to bring it back to the natives of North America is Yeah, once again, just we don't really have a good estimation of how many tribes were actually completely decimated. Do you know how many native tribes currently exist? I'd be curious about that.
I do not. Um, I should know more. God damn it.
We both should. Also, the doctorate in psychology, I'm pretty sure that's something we should both would be doing if we had all the time and money in the world.
I fucking love and hate money. Um,
Yeah.
Carl Jung talked about America. Um, well, he talked about mutually assured destruction as a result of the atomic bomb. But America faced a deeper issue of its own social destruction if we were unable to create the melting pot that was talked of and dreamed of. And this was 60 years ago, and it feels like we're further from where we were back then. Um,
I don't disagree there at all.
and so it's we need what I believe we need a nuclear bomb for the mind. And here's where we can bring in psychedelics. Specifically psilocybin, I think, is that nuclear bomb. There's just something special about it. And don't take my word for it. If you can't sleep at night because you're anxious and it's 2020, YouTube Terrence McKenna Chill Step and just listen to some of that. Have you listened to some of that?
No, I don't struggle to sleep, so
Oh, you're a lucky bastard.
yeah.
Um,
Got 3 kids, man. I sleep whenever I can.
touche. Um, anyways, so I think that is going to be how we can begin to unwind generational and cultural traumas, is by opening people up to how stuck inside of themselves they are, and as a and how much a result of the traumas they have experienced psychologically and physiologically they're operating. Which brings me to another point I've been thinking a lot about, which is like the idea of agency and autonomy. So you talked about people being overweight. Is that a conscious decision? Are 3/4 of Americans just deciding, hey, I want to be overweight? Or is there a disparity between their conscious mind and their agent mind? Like there's something going on there. What's going on there? Uh,
Well, this is kind of a side point, and I don't know that I have an answer to that question. You asked some pretty.
it was a rhetorical one. I'm sorry.
Oh, but the side point I would kind of get at is I really don't think 3/4 of Americans are just deciding to be unhealthy. I think we've talked about like food supply chains, like in exact like the foods that are available to Americans are just not very high quality, especially when you get into urban areas. Um, but that also goes along with
Can you
the
I might disagree with
what?
that. I might disagree with that.
Hold on. Let me just make this last point
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you might disagree with it as well. Probably not. Media misconception of like body types is also, I think, feeding into the negative view of fat people, or whatever you want to call it.
I don't know what point to focus on.
Okay, take it one at
But
a time.
well, so I want to see if maybe I can shift because there's the deeper thing going back to the traumas, and the agency point is think of other habits people have. So like drinking. I smoke pot. I'll be honest. I have a really nice bowl loaded for at some point. And so think of the debt that people are in. Think of the fact that people's bodies hurt, that they're always stressed. Um, how many people do you think possess a medium level of any semblance of self-actualization in like, and I guess maybe another way to word it is, how many people do you think have a lot or full control of their existence? And can you say that someone who is extremely overweight has full agency? Like, do they have agency of their mind and body? And I'm not asking to disparage them. Like, that's a legitimate question. Like, can there be a gap between the trauma of the mind and body? And that's a whole nother thing. Because I think the body can store trauma, and then that creates a whole nother way for you to look at how people exist as humans when they're not just being operated by their brain, which is absolutely like, yeah, of course, we're not just the brain. Like, our bodies influence our behavior, and to what extent and to what degree.
Yeah, there's a lot of outside factors, obviously. Like I was saying, like the nutritional uh, content of what is provided to Americans is just balderdash. It's horrible. I'm trying not to curse. Anyways, it just sucks. But I know that's one point where I think we agree. The other thing, I think I'm kind of struggling with different concepts of self-control and self-actualization, which you brought up. And because self-actualization is a pretty that's and the way I understand it is like Zen. It's like that's kind of the ultimate Zen master is ultimately self-actualized. You will probably know a whole lot more about that, and maybe what I just said is retarded. Using the R word. But yeah.
Ooh, I'm reporting you to the re-education camps.
I feel
Well, so
I feel like the self-control thing is a very, very small part of self-actual, and I'm trying to understand how they're not how that is just a part of it, and like what else. It's like, what's the other like 90%?
well, okay, so yeah, what is do you operate with a personal basis for achieving self-actualization? For example, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is
Yeah,
something that I utilize personally, and his
yeah,
belief in meta motivation. But that's
yeah.
not my only one. I do pursue a lot of philosophies and I love them. And so I think applied to a general population, however, Maslow's hierarchy is like fucking perfect. It's like the great way to construct uh, a diagram for how an individual can achieve individuation or self-actualization within a group of other individuals. So that's the key thing, is like the individual. I very much value individuality, which is why I'm very anti-communist, and I always say that. Um, and so in Maslow's hierarchy, your very base needs, food, fire, shelter, water, so then the second need, um, should we pull up a chart? No, I don't know.
No, we probably should, because I'm actually tested on this. It's part of my education certification. We use Maslow's hierarchy of needs in pedagogy like it's a Bible. Yeah, and this is the whole thing. When I don't think we actually disagree here. Like, so a kid who goes to an urban school probably has not a good sleeping situation, maybe not a good diet. Why? Why are you?
I'm
Why?
getting more comfortable. I'm sorry.
It looks like you're laughing at what I'm saying.
Well, I am because you're just setting me up. I'm sorry. No, but no, I'm sorry. Like in a good way. I'm
So you agree with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but don't agree with how I'm using it?
no. I agree with how you're using it. I agree with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think I
Notice I
see.
said urban.
Yes,
I
no,
didn't mention race.
well, I want to clarify what urban is to you, but then also my point, yeah, go on. So what is
No, that
urban?
actually, I was just talking. Yeah, dude, I was just talking to my brother about the culture war and all that, but BS. And yeah, I truly feel like, and I'm pretty sure you could relate to this, is like if there's a real culture war occurring in America, I feel like it's between urban America and rural America. And I say that from my experiences in both.
Can I say that you are correct? And that is what the oligarchs and the ruling class and the elites want. And that is what I am trying to raise awareness of, is that we are being manipulated. People are being, the culture war is a cover for the deeper shit that's going on. And that's
Okay.
the key fucking point.
Yeah.
What?
Sorry, I agree totally. Yeah, and like so we've talked a lot about this culture war thing, and I'm sorry it got here, but like yeah, I feel like at some point I got the idea that you were like one of those guys who was like, oh, the culture war is ruining America, but you're what you just said. It's a facade. Like that's what it is, for the ultimate for the oligarchy, and yeah. Uh, when we really break these things down, that's when we start to agree.
I agree on the problems, but not the solutions. But that's like why I'm so worked up, is because straight white men who have opinions differing from the narrative that is being perpetuated intentionally to divide us, we're being shut out from the conversation because we pose the greatest threat. That's why I'm like super worked up about this shit, because
I'm sorry.
I have been for years just spiraling downward, being the fucking canary in the goddamn coal mine.
I'm really sorry that this has been your experience, but
I don't want to hear that. All I want is to continue making the amazing progress that we've made. I don't want your
yeah,
sympathy.
okay, that's fine. Something you just brought up, and I think this is something we should flesh out is because I've talked about uh making change or creating change uh, through legislation, primarily through being a voter and a citizen. I haven't talked much about me being a teacher. I'm a high school teacher, man. Like that's what I do. I love it, and I am really excited to help create civic-minded individuals who are prepared for life after high school in the 21st century, because I feel like our generation was not. We are the generation where it was like, oh, schooling needs to change them for a world that doesn't exist anymore. That's what happened to us.
Do you work in a public school?
So
And
yeah,
okay.
we need to have a whole conversation about education, public, we will do that at another time if that's okay.
I would love to,
Yeah,
because it's
me too.
really hard. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. Another time.
I am a high school history teacher. Just sit and chew on that for a little bit, and then we'll have a conversation. So yeah, uh, I got sidetracked. What I was really trying to talk about is something you brought up, is because I talked about the ways I'm trying to make change, and you talked about making change through basically like mass uh, hallucinogenic therapy.
There's
Psilocybin therapy. I mean, I was
there's
just going to say hallucinogen because I know MDMA therapy has had some success with PTSD patients. So I didn't want to just say psilocybin. That's all.
so now are we talking about you and I in the singular sense or like the royal sense? Because you're using yourself is an example. So now do you want to use like, are you asking me personally or me culturally as it like can we be more specific, I guess, on the question?
Well,
So
what
you're
was
a
the
history
first thing I
teacher.
said?
So
I'm sorry. I
yeah,
totally.
you talked about how you're making change through being a history teacher,
Oh no, legislation.
and
That is
legislation.
the
Okay.
whole the great the editorial we. The more the more I don't know what you described it as, but I feel like that's my version of psychedelic therapy.
And so so we started talking about trauma, and I don't know if we want to continue on that path, but like because these are questions that I have for you also with like what is an example of a local ordinance or some local legislation that you think needs passed. So it's like I think that almost should be a whole nother conversation because I want
I'm
to
pretty
see.
sure we already had that conversation. I just
Well,
voted on local ordinances that needed passed. We talked about this in our last conversation. It was Prop 207 and Prop 208.
which
And
what were those again, to get marijuana or something, right?
yeah,
See,
decriminalization of
and that's
marijuana.
like, but that's where we're divided. Is like, why the fuck do we even need to vote on that in the first place? The
Well,
goddamn government.
we're back to it, man.
Well, and so,
You're an
but like,
anarchist.
well, no, I'm not. But what?
It's fine if you are.
No, it's just that the future is dark.
I Yes, I
But
agree.
like, so okay, how do we get back to this trauma? Because
No, no, I do. I actually want to talk about the therapy through psilocybin. I love that idea. Can we talk about that for like healing cultural trauma? Yeah, let's bring it back to that, or even individually.
how much, like how many fucking alcoholics do you know right now? You don't have to answer a number, but like I would venture to guess you know a few. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure everyone knows at least 3 alcoholics.
Okay.
Not everybody knows the power of psilocybin. However, the more people that learn about it, the more that we'll be able to preach its gospel. It's not a cure all. I want to just get that out of the way right now. It is a starting point for a lot of people. That being said, how much different would the world be almost within months if you could walk up to someone you love, look them in the eyes, say, I see that you are fucking struggling. I have an opportunity for you. One night, go experience something intense, insane in a safe and controlled environment, and you will come out on the other end with a new perspective and outlook that will keep you motivated to make real substantial progress and change in your life. It is a starting point. Let me emphasize that again. Psilocybin is not a panacea. It is not a cure-all. It is very much an opportunity for you to see a way out. Now, if you could look at someone you love who is struggling and give them that opportunity, if you don't know what that opportunity is about, you probably know someone in your life that can hook you up. I don't do that. That's not my thing, but you can find someone. Safe setting, controlled environment. I think it can change the world. It really, really can.
So So you so you would vote on a bill to legalize psilocybin? Because I certainly would. And like I'm sorry to keep bringing it back to that, but like that's kind of that's what we're talking about, man. I actually feel like if and like that's how the MDMA thing was done. Like they did it in a university controlled setting. Um, and yeah, we'll talk about academia and all that, but either way, like that's how it went down. Like that's the logistically how MDMA was used in psychological therapy. I absolutely would get behind any piece of legislation that wanted to decriminalize any drugs. I don't think any drugs I like in yeah, Oregon, I'm pretty sure just decriminalized everything and it
Oregon's getting insane.
well, no,
Um,
this is the other thing we should talk about too, is because I was talking to my brother about this, and it's like, I don't, I think we should definitely keep our federal government. Like, I don't think we should dissolve as the United States, but I really think that states should be pursuing more autonomy legislatively, and that's exactly what Oregon is doing.
so many points. Yes, they are. Um, Circling back to trauma, and we talked about like sort of the social and governmental perpetuated trauma, and you mentioned Vietnam earlier. I want to go a little bit bigger than just Vietnam, but just war in general. How many angry fucking men do you know that are angry because of the shit that they've seen, because of the shit that they're holding on to? PTSD, it used to be called things like shell shock. I think there used to be a name for it even before that. So, how much trauma has been perpetuated at the hand of the war machine? And then, how much of that could have been either prevented or addressed at the root? So, preventing angry, drunk men from beating and doing other things to their children, which it brings in a whole nother aspect of trauma. If those men were able to get psilocybin or MDMA therapy or other, LSD is also a promising opportunity. So it's just the fucking government and the ruling class who does not want a healthy population. And I think it was 1964, maybe, the Controlled Substances Act. So at that point, Hoffman had determined that LSD had some tremendous potential, but they're like, no, no, not for the people. Fuck the people. Ah,
I
sorry.
really hate to do this, but like, which side is it that you like? If it gets to legislation, like I hope it does, do you have an idea or assumption of which side will be pushing this legislation? Because we do live in a bipartisan country or political atmosphere.
Which legislation specifically?
No, like the decriminalization of all drugs in Portland. Do you think that was passed by Republican legislators or Democratic legislators?
That's a really good question, and it's off topic, but we can go there, I guess.
We don't exactly. I'm an asshole.
Well, no, it's just like because actually I wanted to mention we could talk about like I think the future because the both parties are undergoing a metamorphosis, so we're gonna have to deal with that. So it's really hard to forecast and predict things moving forward. Um,
So hold on, really quickly. Party shifts aren't as predictable as our economic cycle, but the political party shift happens like 2 or 3 times every century in this country. Parties just shift. Like the Democrats were conservatives 100 years ago.
we're seeing it again. And
Oh,
it's interesting. It's just interesting.
once again, like some of the things you say, it's like he could be right. Like your predictions, it's like, yeah, because
My whole life,
no, your
people have
predictions.
looked at me like, God damn it.
I like your concept of conspiracy realism because like I said before, I took a class on political conspiracy, and dude, what, like I said before, it doesn't need to be proven in a criminal court. Like the things, the documents that disprove the Kennedy assassination conspiracy and the 9/11 conspiracy are both commissions done by the Justice Department, just like the Mueller report. And I own all three, and I don't trust any of them except, yeah. I really, they're like 700-page documents, all of them. But
Are you
like,
saying 9/11 was an inside job?
I'm saying Osama bin Laden was literally trained by the CIA, your favorite organization.
That hurts. I use them.
Sorry, I feel like we've gotten to that point where we can.
No, you're right. I'm sorry. I was playing. People pick on me for being afraid of our government. But anyways, okay. Sorry.
See, the
Osama bin
thing is,
Laden.
okay,
No, I don't know. I'm like trying to like, yeah.
wrangle it back. Because we could talk about conspiracy in our government all day and nobody will care.
How much of a role do you think trauma plays in people's voting habits? Oh. With the web of ways that people can be traumatized.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, so I would say for me personally, and like that, what I kind of wanted to talk about, like individual trauma, because like what I've experienced personally, and yeah, I don't really want to get into that, but I can say that I don't feel like those experiences have affected my voting patterns very much. However, I could understand why they would, like why somebody would establish voting patterns according to their own traumatic experiences. Not me personally. The traumas I've experienced are, I mean, once again, it's like comparative. It's like, how do you compare trauma? But like, I just really don't want to get into the specifics.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, the one specific I will get into is in the last 3 years, I've lost my stepdad, who I was incredibly close to. I lost my dad like 2 months ago, and my grandma died like 3 days ago. So death is, yeah, dude. I'm like, yeah, I'm literally like living through it right now, and I kind of didn't. I'd rather bring this up than the other traumatic experience that I. Oh,
do you want to borrow my stuffy?
that's beautiful. My son asked for a teddy bear. I'm gonna get him a giant dog. He said any animal. He just wants a big one.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Because
so,
Christmas is not canceled. God damn it.
We're having 2 Christmases. That's what happens when your parents split up. But also, that's another trauma. So like, I really didn't want to get too much into the individual stuff.
Yeah.
But it is, like I said, it's the death stuff that I've dealt with most recently, and that honestly isn't really affecting how I'm gonna vote.
We don't have to necessarily get into the specifics, but are you familiar with the gentleman named Jimmy Dore?
Yeah.
I love him. He's been really pushing hard lately on a Medicare for All campaign. It's not even to believe that it's going to get passed, but it's just to get the vote on the floor, just to like make progress, to make a statement, to kind of show, like, because then Democrats will be forced to show their hand on that. And if they vote no, then it's so it's really about trying to weed out not very left, or to weed out the centrist Democrats.
I love it.
Yeah, and so he's pushing
It,
hard on. He's
I will say no. I was grimacing it for a minute because it seems sort of incremental, but when you put it that way, it's got a totally different motive.
it's interesting because that's what AOC kind of campaigned on. She said that that's what she wanted to do was to pressure Pelosi, and now AOC is backtracking on that, but that's not the point. The point is, I don't know what happened with your family, but I do know that the medical system in our country has created a lot of trauma for a lot of families. The bills, the inadequate care, the the just inhumane care that you deal with. Nurses and doctors no longer look at you like you're people. You're just like a fucking box to check. And so,
Yeah, I won't get into the details too much about my father passing. Uh, but yeah, it was just a couple months ago, and I had to go to the city where he lives. It's a couple hours away, and he was in the hospital, and they refused to let us up because of like COVID protocols or whatever. And like like we got there at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were sitting in the lobby like, let us up to see our dad. He's dying. He's probably gonna die in the next few days. You need to let us up. And that's the thing, is like it's a crazy, weird, like neurodegenerative disorder that just like it really hits hard, and like the end is really the end, and we knew it and they didn't. They're like it's also incredibly rare, so these people just had no idea what they were talking about, and they wouldn't let me and my brother up. And yeah, we ended up just leaving because we got tired of waiting. We were there for like an hour, and they were like, look, there's all these protocols that you have to follow, and we can't let you up right now. And the problem was his actual physician, his doctor, wasn't there, that had been taking care of him. So we had to wait for him to be there the next morning to let us in. And he apologized profusely. And it was just like, yeah, that was ridiculous. So sorry, getting super personal again.
you're proving the point of
Yeah.
how broken our system is.
It's almost like, how could you think a universal system would be worse? Like, we rank like 37th in healthcare.
I think, don't we like pay the most for like whatever the per capita cost is or whatever, and we're
Yes,
still not even that great.
exactly.
But uh I've been workshopping this idea in my head, trying to figure out how to get it into words. um you mentioned the culture war is like the red blue urban versus agro. What would you say, like
Rural.
rural? Yeah. And the people perpetuating it, we talked about the feudalism 2.0. They benefit from having not just the conflict but the drastic divide in class, because there is just like such a difference between average and luxury. It's dramatic. And I think that the luxury component of things would go down for some people, and the comfort of a lot of things would go up for people. Um, and so it's like there are two economies almost. There's like the really nice, you just have a nice life, nice things, just nice. And there's the nice economy and the struggle economy. And we need the struggle economy. And this is where you would probably love to jump in. There's in capitalism, what is it? The great man hypothesis. It's a little sexist. We'll call it the great person hypothesis, where that you can pull yourself up by the bootstraps and you can make something of yourself and you can innovate and you can create the next new awesome widget that will change the world. And so everybody's always trying to just everybody's trying to change the world because it's the key to that luxury life that everybody wants, that like few people have. And that sort of illusion perpetuates the people competing against each other instead of collaborating with each other. There's just a whole nother world that you kind of know exists, but you have to almost you have to normalize all the bullshit of this world to get there. And then that world is just so fake and toxic that, and then it's like Hollywood and the left and whatnot. But then you want to talk about trauma. What about like the trauma of the garbage television programming that is being put out? And I don't want to use examples maybe, but like, do you believe that we're being fed propaganda of any kind? The American people, do you believe we're being fed any kind of propaganda from our own government?
I sorry, that's a complicated question because of the definition of propaganda, right?
Okay, well, let me widen it. Like, do you think institutions are engaging in social engineering?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
Could that
hasn't it been
be?
proven that the CIA has been doing that since like the 70s? Yeah,
Maybe,
that's the other thing. It's like the bootstraps thing. It's a myth, and it's literally a myth. And I don't want to sit here and explain to you why it's a myth. You and I both know it is. It's a myth. That's all it is. The other thing, social engineering. Yes, that is a conspiracy I could probably get on board with, my man.
and uh, uh, I'll use I like using gross examples because they kind of stick a little better sometimes. I want to use a gross example of a way that I don't want to say I'm traumatized, maybe, but let's talk about it. Let's be vulnerable for a second. I am fucking tired of seeing ass and tits everywhere. I love ass and tits, don't get me wrong, but I am tired of being inundated with it.
Yeah, I was literally before we were having our conversation. I watch a lot of like debates, and I was watching these people debate sex work, pornography, and some basically like this one person was obviously pro pornography, pro sex work, and the other was he definitely anti porn, but not. He was unclear about his positions on sex work. Either way,
Sorry, just
that's
the wording.
it's funny.
Positions on.
So do you I can if we're gonna get personal, and like that's actually the thing I didn't bring up earlier about my own trauma was an instance of sexual abuse, but it was literally an isolated situation. And like that's why I also brought up repressed memories, because like I barely ever think about it and almost forget that it even happened once. I was like 8 years old, and yeah. Anyways,
Well,
do you,
so, but
do you watch pornography?
I do, and but
For me, it's like who doesn't, but okay.
well, so there's this. Gosh, I don't remember his name. I think it's John Doyle.
Dude,
Do you know
these are
Heck
the
Off
exact
Commie?
people. Yes, these are no. It was a guy named Endernax, and
Okay.
I'm not doxing anybody because these are their YouTube monikers.
Yeah. Um, one of
But
my
they're
friends sent me his like pornographic masturbation, like his challenge, and it's been we can I'll get a little more personal actually with you. I've been doing EMDR therapy, eye movement desensitization retraining therapy. It's supposedly specifically designed to address traumatic memories that have created sort of these pathways in your body that create these loops of uh, anxiety and stress and anger. So like the traumatic experience you brought up that could create these sort of issues. And so I've been doing that therapy, and it has really exposed me. It's allowed me to just tear myself down as a human. So I think 2020 has given a lot of people an opportunity to look inside themselves or to stick their heads further in the sand. And so I've been just tearing myself down as a human. And I will be totally honest, and this is totally gross. I struggle to fall asleep at night if I don't masturbate.
Ah,
It's just like my routine. It's like it's a routine. And I'm very like, I'm a hippie and I'm weird and all of that, but I'm also like a type A person. So if you don't notice, there's like a lot of structure to the randomness of my life. So I'm very routine. And I've noticed that like just without pornography, masturbating, just like it just doesn't work. And there's a deeper connection to all of this. It's like I have issues with like passive suicidality, as it's been called, where like I don't want to kill myself, but I just don't want to fucking live.
yeah. Yes.
I'm so existentially depressed, and these are things that as a man, if you try to talk about, it's oh, don't even get me started on why men don't talk about their fucking feelings, because there's a lot of fucking reasons why men don't talk about their feelings.
Me
Anyways,
me and Cody are going to do a video on men's mental health. You should watch it.
okay, I will.
Yeah.
So to close that loop, I want to stop watching pornography, and that's one of the things that I'm working on.
I can kind of understand that, but I also am able to masturbate without pornography. I rarely do, and it's been a long time since I did, but I know I can. And that's not, I'm not like bragging over here. uh, but I'm thank you for being so open, because like I shared my traumas, and we can share our traumas. Like that was the whole thing, is like I knew we would be able to talk about cultural trauma, and I knew that would actually kind of spiral into what it did. But I'm glad that we were able to open up and talk about our individual traumas, because this really is bringing it back. Um,
Oh, there's so much more. How much more do we go? I don't even know what time it is.
oh, yeah, I've got all the time in the world. Do you mind if I make a drink? I did that last time, and it's not a. Somebody was like, "What?" But then I saw other videos where people do things like that, and it's like I'm not that stressed.
Do you want to try to pause the recording? I see an option to do
Oh,
that.
yeah, no, we can absolutely do that.
But then how do we know when to? So will we still see each other, and then we can just
Yes,
okay, so I'm
the
gonna
only thing that's gonna stop is the recording.
okay, I'm gonna hit pause on mine.
Me too.
And we're back.
Hey.
Round two, fight.
That's hilarious. You literally have the Mortal Kombat, like that sounded like exactly like the soundbite.
The I couldn't recreate it if I tried, so I'm not going to.
Were
a
you
question.
going for Mortal Kombat?
I was.
Okay.
That's the key with me is like I had a job interview today, and part of it involved role playing. It wasn't a sexual thing, but I fucking hate it because like I can't like I just have to be me or else it's weird. But I had a question for you to bring everything back. Have you ever done mushrooms that contain psilocybin?
Yes, many, many times. First time I did them, I was like 13, 14.
Whoa, okay. How does
Yeah.
someone get introduced to something like that at a young age?
I mean, have you seen the movie or the show Trailer Park Boys?
Yes, but I'm not
And
super familiar with it.
so like there's also a show based in Canada called Letterkenny. Have you heard of that?
Was it you who was telling me to watch it? It might have been you.
Maybe. So when I watch these shows, I feel like Trailer Park Boys is like my early childhood, and then Letterkenny's like my middle school, high school days. Uh, but yeah, so like that, if you knew those shows, that would explain exactly why I started so young. But
I have
to
friends that
give
watch
it
Trailer
the-
Park Boys, so I'll
yeah,
probably try to watch that.
to give it some relevancy, I guess, like I grew up in a super rural area in Northwest Washington, Clallam Bay. It is tiny. And I had two older brothers. One was 8 years older and one was 9 years older. And they are basically the reason I also started listening to like Tupac when I was like 8 years old. And like I had Snoop Dogg's Dog Pound like as one of my first cassette tapes. So I it's just how I grew up. I don't know. Also, like my mom is literally. Well, I don't want to get into that. I don't want to dox my mom. Uh, but yeah, my mom has always been a very open, liberal-minded person.
Okay. I just want to say for the record, Tupac's song Changes is like one of the greatest songs of all time. Um, so I guess, man, so experiencing something so profound at such a young age, that can be good or bad. So you've done them many times.
And I say it was great. I remember my first trip so vividly, and how it changed me up here.
Would you be willing to share any of that?
I mean, it was literally. I understood the meaning of the word epiphany. Like
Okay.
everything that I was experiencing was an epiphany. It was like, oh, holy shit! It was just like an utter love and embrace of all that you can experience. Yeah, I just skated around town, like drank Mountain Dew. Like, yeah, it was a really fun, good time. And I was with my twin brother, who's my best friend to this day, and a couple other friends. And it was all of our first time. And all of us were just like, what just happened? That later that night, we were like, all just like minds blown. And yeah, I guess that's pretty vague, but that's as much as I can give you for a 20-year-old memory.
Yes. Do you currently have a regiment or like a routine? Do you use them? Is it where are you at with them now in your life?
Yeah, the last time. Hmm. Well, if we're talking specifically about mushrooms, I actually have some. I just it's probably been like a year or two, and the what I got into later in life was nothing like what I had had with my first experience. Sorry, excuse me, 1 second. Oh Jesus, indigestion. So later on, I found probably. I mean, maybe you've had a similar experience, uh, but like I would find myself in situations where I'd be like partying, drinking, doing a bunch of other stuff, and there'd be some shrooms, and I'd just eat like four or five, and it would make it so much funner. Like I would literally just become the happiest, giggliest, like yeah. So that is where I'm at with them now, but it has been quite a while because I got a lot of responsibilities these days, and I shouldn't. I really that's a horrible excuse. I shouldn't say that you couldn't handle your responsibilities and be on a regular regimen. I feel like it would actually take some mental gymnastics on my part that I'm not really prepared for right now. I'm just becoming a teacher. Like I got a lot going on, so I'm interested and intrigued and very excited for my next experience, which I hope will be soon.
Cheers to that.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I experienced a variety of traumas as well. And so I I've experienced so much luck in my life. For as mopey and as a victim mentality as I embrace sometimes, I also need to understand, like, I made it through Port Angeles, Washington, without like using hard drugs or like getting any sort of addiction. um I was somewhat raised by people who drank a lot, at different people who drank a lot. So different people raised me, but there was always this stigma around pot. So this individual that sort of adopted me would drink a bottle of wine or more and then chastise people who smoke pot. And so I was super straight edge. I was very straight edge until I was 26 or so. And then the pressure of life just got to be way too much. And marijuana had just become legal in Washington. And at that point, I was like, if it's legal in the state, I should try it before I continue to demonize people for using it, because I had embraced the reefer madness.
Oh, you were 26?
Yes. Yes.
That is intense.
And so, well, so there's this is one reason why I'm insanely passionate about marijuana and people who shouldn't be in prison for it, because I absolutely understand how powerful the propaganda is and how easy it can be to be brainwashed.
Yeah.
Um,
So this is exactly why it got so heated last time, because for me, I grew up in like a household where I was basically allowed to smoke weed. And that trauma, that's trauma right there. Like, you were traumatized your whole life by propaganda against weed. Not your whole life, for 26 years. Uh, so I'm sorry if I interrupted you, but I feel bad. Like, uh, because yes, we had such different experiences.
um, and yes, so I'm coming from an experience of deceit. I have been deceived deeply by individuals and by institutions. And so that's why one of the many reasons I'm so very goddamn fucking skeptical of the government. Like, we need more reasons, but that's one reason. But so when I asked about linking trauma to political affiliation, I would say yes. My traumatic life experiences have informed my political leanings. And I have recently and more increasingly been talking about universal basic income, because I think poverty is a trauma trap that is just just soul crushing. And I think a lot of people are just, when I talk about the darkness in the future, people are waking up, people, different factions are forming, people are talking about revolutions and riots, and it's all being brewed and allowed to happen because these people, everybody, not everybody, but most people have been traumatized in a variety of ways. And so now it's just they're looking for outlets and blowing off steam. And I think violence is going to continue to increase, and hate and anger is going to continue to increase. But it would be so much different if everyone just tripped. Let's all trip next Sunday. Um,
So the best way that I see that happening is other states going the route that Oregon has gone and taking the first step by decriminalizing all these things. And that's what is kind of a question I actually want to kind of pose to you. And it is a total hypothetical, and this is where I like when you come up with these. Your answers to these hypothetical questions are almost always awesome.
Oh boy.
So, do you think that it's more likely that we would see a dissolution of the American government, at which point drug laws would, I guess, become null? Or do you think it's more likely that states will one by one start to decriminalize drugs, creating a trend that would potentially transcend to the federal level?
That is such a hard question right now.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like, I
I knock on wood, and I should stop saying this, but I think I'm gonna live for like 60 more years. So that's kind of the arc that I use to predict my life personally. A lot hinges on January 6th of next year. I don't know how closely you're tracking the election. I know you confidently believe that Biden has won. I believe that there are going to be a lot of things happening on January 6th. I don't know what exactly is going to happen, but things are going to happen. Regardless, yeah. So if I think Trump could still stay in office next year somehow.
So the only recourse, and I don't know what happens after this actually, but basically the electoral votes get sent to Congress. So the House of Representatives have to approve the electoral votes, and being that it's a Democrat majority, that is almost like guaranteed to happen. When it goes to the Senate, I I don't know when the Georgia runoffs will end, and that will literally decide who has a majority in that house. So if the House of the Senate decides to not accept the electoral votes, because that, I guess that's how it works, like they get sent to both houses and they have to be voted on and approved. So like I don't know what happens after that. I don't know if it's ever happened in history. I This is why presidential history is, because I'm a history teacher, is one of the areas that I plan on pursuing further, like especially now that I'm done with my coursework. Like individually, I want to learn about presidential history so I can know more of what we're talking about right now, because it's all laid out in the Constitution, like this. And the Electoral College is incredibly complicated, but I mean, yeah, I don't know what happens after that if one house decides not to approve the votes of the Electoral College. I don't know what happens after that.
Well, so this is where it could get tricky, in that some states could send different electors. So there's going to be different vote counts, which is going to create controversy and confusion. So I think I saw like Arizona, I think pledge it's gonna, so there's a lot's going to happen. But I guess in the bigger picture is, how does America respond regardless? There's going to be roughly 75 million plus unhappy, angry people, like no matter who wins, Biden or Trump. And it's the future is not bright. Like nobody's okay.
So
Few
you bring
people
that up,
are.
but what about the 80 million people that voted for Biden? And like that's what I'm saying. It's like you're so willing to commit to the fact that Trump got 72 million
I'm
votes.
not, I'm
But
not, I'm not, I'm not, I use 75 million as a, I'm not willing to commit to any number for Biden or Trump. Let me
okay.
say that. So I'm not willing to commit to any number for either of them.
Are
What
you
I'm
willing? Are you saying that you actually think more people voted for Trump than Biden though?
what I'm willing to say at this current moment is that I do not think any recent election has been free and fair.
Yeah. I will.
I love how we both do this. It's like
Presidential election. I've already told you. The elect. I'm all about the abolition of the electoral college. Once again, that's another conversation. I don't really want to get into all of that right now. However,
we're
I
getting
don't.
sidetracked because like we'll see it comes down to whether or not you believe the culture war is real or not. So that's the first point. And so if you don't believe it's real, then I don't know what to tell you. But then if you do believe it's real, how do we heal that divide that continues to seem to grow?
Well, but no, we agreed that it's not real. It's a facade.
No, no, okay, no, no, no. It's real because people are perpetuating it. It's not real because it's not the real issue. So
Yeah.
it's happening. It is happening, but it's not what should be happening. So the
So
culture war is
I want
happening.
to say the same thing about the SJW or really the anti SJW thing, is that that
I don't follow.
yeah. I'm sorry, I forgot. I've had too much to drink. Um, what were you just saying?
So for the record, I consider myself a social justice warrior.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay.
I want to get back to what you were saying. I lose my train of thought. We've
No, no,
talked.
no, 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 that's fine. What I'm saying is, how do we raise awareness to those around us who don't understand that the culture war is a facade? There we go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and like yeah. Sorry, I brought up the SJW thing because it is
No,
kind of
it
a
helped me reword the question appropriately.
exactly. No, it's a side point that doesn't really make any sense when you reword the question. So,
Because there's hate and anger and divide, and it's growing. How do we address that?
yeah, and
In Biden or Trump, neither one's going to do that. Like yeah.
so I almost know like there's no chance. I don't expect you to watch it, but one of the best things, articles, videos I've seen, read. Sorry, my dog. Give me a second. Zoe, out.
Oh, that's me true. I'm gross you guys out.
No, so there's he's a I guess a Marxist, uh, and I'm sure you've heard of him, Dr. Richard Wolff, but maybe not. Yeah. Anyways, he made a video that was no matter what happens. Like it was a video if Trump wins or if Biden wins, and he did a really good analysis. And even though he's a Marxist, I think you would actually like that video.
What's like his premise?
Oh, that well, it's basically about the ills of capitalism, and he's not a communist, like I said. Like he really is a Marxist. He believes in.
Well, so for my sake and for anyone who might watch this video, can you please
Sorry.
quickly describe the difference between a Marxist and a communist? Because I do understand there is a difference, but some people might not, and I believe it's kind of nuanced. So,
I'm really sorry, but I am definitely not in a position right now to explain the difference between Marxism and communism. I mean, um, because and this is I'll try to flesh it out. Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto. So I guess the difference between Marxism and communism is the pursuit strictly, sorry, of the Communist Manifesto literature, or the pursuit of general Karl Marx ideology.
So maybe it could be said that like Carl, like I when I think of a Marxist, I think of someone who wants to wage war against the bourgeoisie. When I think of a communist, I think of someone who wants the state to take over everything, which ultimately I think all roads lead to that. Like the war on the bourgeoisie requires the state. So to me, there's no difference to Marxists and communists, but you know, pedantic people do like to differentiate themselves.
To be totally honest, this is exactly why I didn't really want to go down this road. But that no, that is I want to get back to your question because this is once again I this is almost an area where we can't really disagree because it's speculative. Speculative.
Well, and so it's just so frustrating to me that people blame capitalism for the ills because it's not capitalism. It's greed, bureaucracy, ruling classes, governments that monopolize the use of force. And I just want to be clear here. I want to be very, very, very fucking clear for a second, YouTube. I am not advocating for the use of guillotines. However, I acknowledge their purpose, and the government protects the ruling class from the guillotines. Get rid of the government, and the ruling class becomes a lot more afraid of the people. Or if the people get angry enough, the ruling class and the government become more afraid of the people because the people outnumber the government and the ruling class. They need to remember that. So while I do not advocate for violence, that is what in a natural, non bureaucratic environment would happen when people
Yeah.
get angry
So
enough. Sorry, go on.
all of those things you brought up, greed, ruling class, and bureaucracy, are features of capitalism.
They're not. They're
Yes,
not.
yes, they are.
No.
Show me a
Capitalism is the free
show me a
exchange of goods. That's it.
show me a capitalist nation that doesn't have any of those three things.
There's no one that
Those
exists.
components.
That's the thing, is that people are confusing government and economics.
I didn't say government.
That's the thing. Capitalism,
you can have free
capitalism
ruling
is
classes and bureaucracy without a government. That can all exist within a capitalist corporation, and it does.
it
I'm
can,
so,
yes,
so
your
upset
point.
that we're yelling at each other right now.
Well, because capitalism is an economic theory at its core that just wants people to exchange goods freely.
So don't
That's
you
it.
want post-capitalism?
Tell me about post-capitalism.
I have a whole book that I'm going to send you. It's a treatise. It's only like 70 pages. You can get through it.
Because that's what I've been talking about.
Oh, see,
like,
once again, it's like we disagree on the details, and then the solution or the outcome is the same. It's like, yeah. This book is called Capitalist Realism. Um, it's a hell of a book, dude. You will love it.
well, and so maybe this could be the time, maybe not. But oh, you're gone.
I can hear you.
Oh, you're good.
I'm sorry. It's my dog.
No, you're okay. Mine's sleeping, luckily. So, shoot. I we should probably do a whole different episode on Dr. Peterson, but I think people are very hesitant to accept the reality that hierarchies are a natural result of just existence. And so people get really uncomfortable at the idea that no amount of leveling will create a world of equity. And a post-capitalist society is not a society that strives for equity, or not one that I am invested in building. So I'm curious to read that book. I really am. But we really, like, if you and I want to discuss further, we need to acknowledge if equality of outcome or equality of equity is the goal.
Oh, dude. Wow. Yeah. Because this is a big thing that, yeah, once again, I'm going to say this real quick, but I really don't want to talk about this right now. I think this is a whole different video. I don't know anybody who's arguing for equality of outcome. All I can find examples of is people advocating for equality of opportunity. But yeah, I don't really, we can flesh that one out later. Um, it seemed like earlier you were like advocating for positions to reduce inequality. Just inequality, like wealth inequality, especially like the fact that there's so many, the elites, the rich, all that. Um, but also I can understand advocating for a reduction of inequality and still acknowledging hierarchies, but it's I don't, once again, it's like I don't know a whole lot of people who are trying to get rid of hierarchies. They exist. I literally learned about them in my education class. Hierarchies, archetypes,
So
things like they exist. They're just common human features, and like not just human. Obviously, they transcend. But once again, like I
this is a
I don't want to I don't want to use the word boogeyman.
well, no, no,
But
no. So we can loop in the social engineering component to this, because I'm really willing to bet that your social media feeds skew left and mine skew right. That being said, I get the highlights of the insanity from the left, and you get the highlights of the insanity from the right. So we can give each other examples of the insanity of what we perceive to be the other's general direction of leaning. But if you and I want to collaborate and move forward right now, can you say that you support equality of outcome or equality of opportunity over one or the other?
why would I? Once again, this is the, I think this is, I hate using these words with you, a sort of straw man, because I don't.
It's an easy question. It's an intellectual, easy question.
Who is arguing for equality of outcome?
I can fucking give you so many examples. Why are you refusing to answer the simple question?
What's the question? I'm sorry.
Do you support equality of outcome or equality of opportunity?
Equality of opportunity.
Boom. There we go.
So once again, do you think there's a bunch of people out there supporting equality of outcome?
Did you mean to say equity?
No.
I believe
Equality
that
of outcome, equality of
hold on,
opportunity.
let me I believe that there are a lot of people out there trying to push both agendas.
Yeah.
Equality, yeah. And I think one is more right than the other.
Once again, I don't know who
and that is a result of our ever shrinking echo chambers of social media, because shit
once
is
again,
fucking toxic.
yeah, I don't know who's arguing for equality of outcome.
What example of evidence would you accept
Anybody saying that they're advocating for the equality of outcome? Like anybody?
In what format? Or I'm talking an academic journal. I'm talking about something certified from like the Smithsonian, like something from what website would be sufficient?
Somebody says it in a speech and it's like on
Kamala fucking Harris. Boom.
Okay, thank you. She didn't.
She
say
did.
that.
She did.
She did.
Google it. Like,
Yes.
okay, let's keep
Yeah.
talking. I'm gonna look for it while you entertain the people.
Now I'm gonna make a drink. I believe what you're looking up right now, she said the exact word she uses is equitable outcomes.
Are we really gonna get semantical? This is why I get mad at you, because you're being dense, because you're letting the fucking propaganda trick you. And this is why I call you dense, because you're letting the propaganda trick you. Kamala Harris is not a good person. And if you believe that, you're fucking retarded. I use the word too. You can report me to the re-education camps too. I will sign up, as a matter of fact.
So within this argument, you use a straw man and an ad hominem, and it's I'm honestly surprised. I find you to be such a fascinating individual, and I want this to continue, but
A lot of people do.
you're just insulting me, and that's not.
I trigger a lot of people
I'm not
because
triggered.
they can't handle the fucking truth.
I've shown our videos to a lot of people, and believe me, nobody thinks I've been triggered by you.
Because you live in a bubble.
You have no idea how national and international my world is. Once again, I'm sorry that this has digressed. Yeah, I guess if we want to talk about Sublantics, that's what she said. If you want to say that equitable outcomes means equality outcome, then I guess we could talk about how that's different, because equity is not the same as equality.
This is something we should have discussed on a whole different thread.
Yeah, totally. This is should we, how can we bring it back to the trauma stuff?
We could talk about all the people that Kamala Harris put in prison for pot.
No, let's can we get back to your personal stuff?
Yes.
You said I'm sorry. Just trying to get what I was talking about. And I forgot. So,
I get like really frustrated because we're on the same side and you're dismissing me when we can be allies.
dude, you're the one calling me dense. How am I dismissing you?
Because you're not acknowledging the things that I'm trying to bring to your attention that I consider alarming. You might not think that they're an issue, but if we're going to be allies, you might want to still hear me out. Sorry, let me reposition. We both want to build the post-capitalist world.
can yeah, I remembered what we were talking about. Like I think the last point you made talking about trauma was you talking about how your own traumatic experiences have affected your voting patterns. Is that what it was? Or your
Political leanings, affiliation,
political lean,
beliefs, my general hate and
your
mistrust
politics?
for the government. Oh, by the way, how far is that $600 going to go towards your rent payment?
Like
It's half
half?
my rent.
Yeah, like half.
And how much of a pay cut did our politicians take during all of this pandemic?
Well,
How many big businesses like didn't close or may have actually recorded record profits?
so I also want to get personal again here. Like, what, regardless of how you feel about public school and the fact that it is basically people's daycare, that is the world we live in. So, getting teachers should be considered like frontline, like first to get the vaccine, like that. Period. Oh, okay.
Yeah, if they want it, absolutely.
Yeah.
Whoever wants it should get it first.
Sorry, the economy would literally just the kids being able to go back to school would, I guess, not unfortunately, kids going back to school would definitely be a good thing for our economy. Like, because of like what I said, most people use it as a daycare.
You so actually I just had a thought that might really help moving forward us in our conversations. Like if we try to talk about current state and post like our how to build the post-capitalist state, because I agree, you said that schools are daycares and or assembly line training facilities for factory workers.
No, but what factories? It's antiquated. Like, I'm in public education and I hate how antiquated it is. We need to be preparing these kids for life after high school in the 21st century.
So
That is why I'm a teacher, dude. I'm once again, I feel so many, just to cut another white boy, but like disenfranchised because of what I had to go through and what I was told was the right thing.
what does public education look like in a post-capitalist world? And
Oh, is that it?
yeah, there was an and, but then I was like, no.
Yeah.
And maybe there is an and. Is private education or homeschooling allowed?
So I think I'm not big on private schools, and we can talk about that's what we should talk about in our public education conversation. We can talk about that. But homeschooling, my big thing is like parental involvement. Like, that is almost one of the biggest, not, it is one of the biggest factors in a child's academic success is parental involvement. So I like the idea of like a hybrid homeschool public school thing where parents take on a bigger role in their kids' education.
So
It's complicated.
It is, especially when, so we agree we want to help build the post-capitalist world, but you touched on something, parental involvement. So I want to say, I want to be your ally in this effort. Please give me space when I say that although it be small, I believe there is a growing effort to disrupt the nuclear family, which is not going to help the post-capitalist society. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. The smallest portion of the Progressive and Democratic Party might be the loudest voice. And so even from an optics perspective, your party is being damaged by that. However, I believe it goes beyond optics because I believe they're actually accomplishing objectives, and I believe that I absolutely believe that there are people who are attempting to infiltrate and subvert the system as a whole. I believe that people from the left and the right are doing that.
So,
We've hit a, I'm sorry,
let
go
me
on.
ask you a question.
Yes.
Um, I'm sorry, but like the nuclear family is kind of a modern invention. Whether or not you agree with that is a whole other conversation. However, would you not be more interested? And I know you don't like communism or whatever, but wouldn't you be more interested in a communal effort to raise the youth?
Yes. Yes. There
Yeah.
are layers. There are layers to this.
Yeah.
You as an individual, the layer of the nuclear family, the layer of the extended family, the layer of the community. And I
Oh,
actually have a
okay.
point. I want to talk about something real quick about this. It is really not is gauche the word, I think, or it might be gauche to engage in this behavior when you criticize someone's parenting style. However, when you let members of your tribe or community be stupid and when you let them raise stupid children, you're not helping the tribe. You're actually harming the tribe. So, in fact, I believe that it should be less of a taboo or faux pas to constructively criticize how people parent because I do so very much believe in the fact that we are a community.
Yeah. I'm a stepdad and I take my uh, stepdadding very seriously. You may or may not have noticed. They're my kids. Like that's all there is to it. Like
Love
they
is
have a
love,
dad. He's
man.
out there somewhere, but
Nah, love is love.
he's
That's all.
only their dad in the biological sense. Yeah. Um. So yeah, like
That's can I just like
I,
sidetrack for like one quick
I will
moment?
criticize people all day on their parenting skills because I am a seem do as good as me.
Uh just one quick moment. I think in modern times being a stepdad is one of the most under thanked jobs. You're literally raising another man's kid. You're raising or kids. You're raising other man's kids. That is like such a noble thing. And I think uh because the nuclear family has been so disrupted, it's like it's just I have my own like my family history is stupid and that's why I'm so goddamn passionate. If I ever have kids, like man, I'm gonna just love. You got it, man. And thank you for what you're doing. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, and I view it more as a opportunity than anything because I mean I through most of my 20s I was addicted to hard drugs and not I don't know. Once again, another traumatic experience that I really like to downplay because it's not like I was, a junkie robbing people or anything, but I was addicted to hard drugs for most of my 20s.
I just got a warning that my internet connection is unstable. So if I disconnect, it's not you, it's me.
Yeah, no sweat, Brett.
Would you be willing to describe what a hard drug is? Because that's like I don't think LSD is a hard drug. I don't
See,
think
this is the other
mushrooms.
thing.
You don't have to talk about it. We can a different time.
Yeah, let's have that conversation when we're not recording it because that is definitely like of all the things we've talked about, like cussing, swearing, like that's definitely something I don't want recorded. So yeah, all I'll say is I was addicted to some hard drugs through most of my 20s, and that's why I view parenting as an opportunity because this is also one of the reasons why I am kind of a big anti-advocate or antagonist of like the whole NA and AA thing because I got clean without that and they'd be like, oh, you're using your kids as a crutch and that's not healthy. It's like I'm sorry, that sounds pretty damn healthy to me. But yeah, so basically I fell in love with this girl, and then I fell in love with her kids, and then I fell out of love with the girl. But you don't fall out of love with your kids, so yeah. I
I
love
don't
my
know.
kids. They're my kids, man.
I don't know if I should ask follow up or not, but s- so are you currently, so you're not with their mother?
We're I'm closing my dad's estate because he just died, and as soon as I get done with all of that, and I have an official teaching job because I'm kind of in between jobs right now. Um, Once I have a settled job and I've closed my dad's estate, we're gonna get different houses. We live in separate bedrooms, like we live in the same house, but we have separate bedrooms.
I, God
We are
damn it.
not together.
Uh,
It sucks.
I am like asking all the wrong questions. Um,
No, you're not. I love this, dude. And like I'm so glad that we got back to this because I truly do get upset when we start yelling at each other. Like once again because I find you fascinating and I just want this to continue.
I am sorry. Um, it, I'm open to you disagreeing with me, absolutely. But there, I would just really, really like the space for you to just even hear me out on some things because the pattern stopped, but I had a fractal playing because I love the fractal, the idea.
I
What I,
noticed the whole time. I
yeah.
can't believe I didn't even mention it. Like that was awesome.
um the there are a lot of things in the universe that are fractal, and so my personal experience, I in our email exchange I said whatever this turns into, whatever my art and authenticity creates, it needs to be pure and true. um I am one iteration of a fractal of an issue that I know exists. And so when you dismiss the things that I say, I can tell you that there are a lot of other people who are dealing with the things that I'm dealing with. And that if you can help me overcome these things, we can help other people overcome them too. So these are
Yeah.
not just like me being an angry incel in my mom's basement. There are a lot of people I feel that deal with some of the same concerns that I do. And so I get passionate because it truly and sincerely feels like there is a concerted effort to silence straight white men because we are questioning the narrative at the highest rate. I We can talk about privilege another day. I do believe that there are classes and I do believe that there are privilege gaps and that there are power gaps. Like I said, I agree so much with the social justice warriors, but and it feels like at times you're like it really feels like you're on like the fence, you're open-minded, you're willing to move your Overton window. You're one of the very few, but you're having to deal with like the trauma of the interactions I've had with the less honest actors. So I'm
I'm
sorry. I'm
No,
sorry.
hold on. Let me just say, but I literally get like the exact same opinion from you. Or like that's how I am feeling. Everything you just said, I could literally say about you. So,
Okay.
um, and honestly, I will admit, I'm drinking, smoking, and I lose my train of thought a lot. I'm not like I don't think I'm necessarily. I don't think there's an intelligence difference here. I think there's a processing difference here.
Yes. Yes. And the our ability to kind of decide to focus on present state and post capitalist state will really help the process because
Yeah.
um
And well, so like also like the thing I was actually gonna say that didn't relate to just like a basic comparison is that like what you also just said is like kind of a pretty massive task. Would you agree with that? Like I have my work cut out for me if I'm to do if I'm to change the mind of not just you, but like all of the people, I guess, like you. I don't know. That's what you're saying, right? No?
Yes and no. Yes and no.
Okay.
What I was saying is that our exchanges could be an example for how other people who are sitting across from each other on this divide, how they can come together. Because
Okay.
it's like, it just, everybody's lost friends and they've lost family. And it's like, there's people they want to reach back out to. And there are issues that I think there are greater opportunities for resolution and compromise and middle ground to be found once we can get past all the crap. And that's in that post-capitalist sort of world that we're going to try to talk about building.
So yeah, once again, I just it comes down to the processing thing. I think you've gotten frustrated with the fact that sometimes I just don't, I can't process things as quickly, and yeah,
Well, no,
the gist of it, I guess.
like the equity and outcome discussion, it just felt like I was talking to the narrative and you weren't even trying to hear my side of the story at all. It felt like you were just trying to shut it off because I'm wrong. It just really didn't feel like I was given a fair shot at all from the beginning. And that's kind of like what I'm talking about.
I'm sorry. How did I shut you down at all?
It just, you,
no, basically what I'm hearing is like you didn't agree with my points and you got frustrated. Which is, I'm sorry. I hate when we get
no, but like the thing is, you literally said nobody is talking about that. You reiterated, I don't know exactly what you said, but you said,
no, I agree. I will say that again. Like I don't know that this it's that's the other thing that we were talking about. It's
but
like, and that I didn't complete the thought on is it's not like this giant thing where people
how do you
are
know that?
What?
How do you know that? I'm trying to present you with evidence that it could be, but you're not letting me by the fact that you're saying it's not a giant thing. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking to the narrative and I'm talking to the propaganda right there. It's not a giant thing. You don't know shit about what I'm talking about because you're not even willing to listen. That's why I get mad. You just proved me right. It's not a giant thing. It's not a giant thing. It is a thing.
About it. You still haven't said anything about who's actually. And once again, if you're going to bring up Kamala Harris, like she didn't say equality of outcome, and
okay, so we have the freedom and fascism on
the thing where I think we can actually agree is you talk about me agreeing with the narrative or whatever, but it's like, and you also talked about like my social media feed. I don't consume like.
I said I was willing to bet. That's like
I don't consume any mainstream media, like none, literally none.
So how about, so we have the freedom and fascism on the docket. Let's put equity and equality on the docket as well.
Yeah.
So we can do a whole thing about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, and also like, we should probably, I think we should share sources before we have our next conversation about that. And
well,
not
so
just
you're just not going to have a conversation because you're going to be like, oh, look, they say equity, they say equity, they say equity.
Okay, so then you don't agree that we should share source. That's fine. I guess we'll just create our own.
No, see, it just makes me not want to do the work because like I'll just find one and send it to you, and you're gonna be like, it's not good enough. Or, okay, no, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it, and I'm gonna share sources. I'm gonna share sources. I'm gonna share sources.
I consume. That's the other thing. I consume tons of right-wing media, not just left-wingers reacting to right wingers. I consume tons of right wing media. And I feel like you just don't like you have a broad misconception of my media consumption.
I make statements like I'm willing to bet because there's a lot of ambiguity in that.
If
So
you
you
think
are
I wouldn't
correct.
bet on anything I've said in the last hour,
Say again.
do you think I wouldn't bet on anything I've said in the last 2 hours?
Oh no, I think you would. But
Okay. Sorry, that's you just brought that point up, and it's like
no. I say I'm willing to bet because there's a lot of ambiguity in my confidence. So it's an intentional framing and usage of language to say, I'd speculate, but I'm open to being wrong. And you have proven me wrong. So there was there was a point I wanted to get at.
That's all right.
Or do we call it? I don't
No,
know.
I don't think we should. Unless you're ready. I'm not really. Yeah, and this is the other thing. Like we definitely have a lot of material, and I guess the final point I want to reiterate what I just said is that it has to do with my media consumption. And I think you and I have misconceptions about each other generally. And this is kind of what this is all about, is trying to, yeah, trying to figure out like where exactly are we not understanding each other?
Was that a question or?
Not really.
Oh, okay. I'm like, wait, okay. Well, let me ask you, how well do you understand yourself?
I would say like 50% if I had to put a number on it. I don't have a whole ton of, I guess, well, it's not that I don't have confidence or control. It's what you were talking about earlier is actualization. And I just I don't feel, and I feel like I'm kind of trying to be humble here, in that like I don't want to sit here and pretend like I fucking have a really good grasp on my own self-actualization, because, I'm only 32 and I'm working on it. What about you?
Uh,
I imagine you have a little more confidence in yourself, reality or whatever.
no,
No? Yeah, okay, maybe not.
because I should be more patient with you. I shouldn't lose my temper.
You understand that I'm not stupid. I just
No, unequivocally, I understand that.
thank you.
Um, so speaking on the trauma terms, I've struggled for years with like just housing, just having security and housing. And so
I'm glad you brought this up.
I have a tremendous confidence that there is a person within me that someday I hope to be able to access that will be actualized. But I am like so like I'm stressed every second of every day. And I experience like physical pain and mental pain and like I want to be able to read, and I can't. Like, it's really hard for me to just sit and read right now.
Yeah.
Because it's like I don't know if my rent isn't paid for this month. Like, I can't sit still. I just can't sit still, right? And so
Let
I've
me-
been, yes.
Real quick. My mom was not able to read fiction, or is still not able to read fiction after her husband died. She can read, she can't read fiction.
Is there more, like, is it just like
He was a story writer.
so accessing the creative sort of world that projects that it just, yeah.
I'm sorry that I interrupted you.
No,
but
no. It's, well, so it's,
Yeah.
trauma is so fascinating. And I think in today's age, it's affecting more and more people's political leanings, which is why I'd asked you, and which is why I'm honest about mine. And you talk about Oregon a lot. And so I'm up here in Seattle. And so I hear a lot about what's going on. And there's, so I don't want to disparage people, but there does seem to be a large amount of people with some serious mental illnesses that are congregating to these, like, Portland and Seattle Chaz Chop, these autonomous zones, and these cities that are rioting, and there's and these are people that I feel like, again, are being manipulated. So it's like almost like, and we're going back to like the hierarchies. And so although Antifa is not an organization, it doesn't take an organization. It just takes somebody with a little bit of money and with a little bit of motivation and direction to identify weak people and manipulate them. It's like mob bosses do not only engage in organized crime. The idea of a mob boss is just a person who knows how to manipulate those around them to accomplish objectives. So there are mob bosses who are manipulating these people with significant mental illnesses. But then on the right, there are like poor white people, and nobody fucking cares about poor white people right now. But they're getting their $600 and they're not being able to pay their bills, and they're seeing, I get why people like Donald Trump. It's all just because people are traumatized, and there's so many ways that people can be traumatized. And that's what it all comes back to. And so homelessness, we talked about, like, why did I start talking about all that?
I don't know. I can't agree with you on the Donald Trump thing, but that's
Well, so no. You can't.
No. You said something about white people, poor white people.
You can't
And-
see how a poor white person can like him.
Dude, yes, I definitely can.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize that that's what you were saying when you said, I get why people like him. Obviously, you're talking about poor white people. I didn't put it together. Yes, I can kind of, once again, like, if you know any history about him, he's a New York fucking socialite. So how does he appeal to the working class? Once again, I don't know. Those are people who don't know his history and love his rhetoric.
Let me, if anybody actually watches this, please YouTube Hot Sauce in the Bag. Because there's a deeper message beyond that.
I didn't want to talk about that. I had another point, but
it's
fucking forgot.
It's called pandering.
Yeah,
pandering.
he's great. He's a panderer.
They're all great. Well,
Well,
like Joe
yeah.
Biden is not great. He's a, well, no, he actually, anyways. So trauma, poor people like Donald.
Yeah, no. I wanted to.
But poor people also. That's why I also like poor people like communism.
No,
That's
I
why,
wanted
like-
to. Let
Okay.
me, yeah, once again, it's like, dude, there's so many points. Like, this is the other thing is like, sometimes I'll like go through a thing and like make a bunch of different points, and you're like, oh man, let me address all that.
And then we end up way over there.
Do that with you too, but yeah. So I just want to want you to acknowledge that I have to do the same thing with you sometimes. Yeah, so it was a famous thing of Martin Luther King later on, who was a socialist, but he said famously that there's more poor white people in America than there are poor black people in America. So the class war is a thing, but the race war is a thing, and this is where we also need to have a conversation about intersectionality because you have brought it up so many times, and I definitely want to talk about it. But that's sort of his thing is, or was my interpretation of that statement that there's more poor white people than poor black people is that yes, there's a race, and dude, in 1968 when I don't know when he said that. In the 60s, when he said that, there was pretty much a race war going on in this country. But
did you know that he was advocating for a guaranteed minimum income?
The class war, yeah, UBI, yes. Dude, once again, and taxes. We need to talk about taxes.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So yeah, like it's like point after point after point. But what I'm really
Post-capitalism
trying to get at is that he was sort of intersectional when he was saying that poor black people are affected by not only the race war but the class war. Like that's something that's affecting these people, and the real intersectionality came from black lesbians, if you didn't know, which is kind of obscure.
I actually identify as a black lesbian woman. Specifically, if you've seen the show Shameless, the character named Bob.
No, I hate Bob. I fucking hate that character. I literally would shoot her if I had a gun.
Have you actually seen the show?
Yeah, dude, like every episode, and she is the worst.
But that's like
she's just like, oh, we're taking this baby because it's ours.
That level of angry black lesbian woman is my soul. So when I get worked up, dude, that's coming out.
No.
But on a serious note, so I agree. And here's my biggest beef with like how intersectionality is being weaponized right now, and it comes back to a theme that I have mentioned, is that there is that concerted effort to silence or suppress the straight white man. I'll get super crazy and we can talk about it on another stream, but I'll bring it up right now. The Yuri Bezmenov Soviet subversion lecture, where he talks about the demoralization of the West.
I have literally watched that entire thing like 3 or 4 times through.
It is an effort. So, and I'm not saying this to put them on a pedestal, but I'm saying it from a demographic perspective. Straight white men make up like the largest kind of just chunk. And we're like the biggest chunk that would fight back and unite, right?
So this is what's crazy about what he said, because I guess like it's kind of hard to disagree with his statements on of the demoralization and like in like academia and all that. Like it sort of happened. I don't think it happened to the degree that he thought it would. Like, if you think people are getting Marxist indoctrination in public universities in the United States, then I'm sorry, that's a conspiracy I won't get on board with.
It's called the slow march through the institutions.
Okay, like that, once again, that's another conversation. So what he did say, though, is that after the demoralization occurred, which I believe the demoralization did somewhat occur, that an empire only had 4 or 5 years left after that. We are literally the global dominant power like 20 years after he gave that speech, and he said he gave us like 5 to 10 years. So that's where he was like just wrong. Like American imperialism outgrew his theory of imperialism, I guess.
How awesome do you think this country is going to be in 5 years?
How awesome?
Yeah.
Uh, that's a good question. I mean, I feel like basically, I I don't I don't think things are awesome right now. So I guess I feel like you're asking, will it be better or worse?
Well, so he's wrong, but things aren't great right now. So like how do you define the state of affairs as they are right now?
Oh
And
well,
what trajectory do you see them going? Because I
uh,
would say he was right and we're living it, brother.
once again, the United States is nowhere close to dissolution.
Let's talk again on January 6th. Like, no, see, but dissolution doesn't mean there's a fine dividing line on an immediate day. It's a very slow thing. It's happening. And so this is what I'm talking about. We get the opportunity to contribute to the post-capitalist rebuilding. We're living through the downfall right now. I agree with you. So much about our systems are fucked. That's what I keep saying. I agree with you all that things are busted, that we need to rebuild them.
Yeah. I
So it's like when you shit on me for bringing up the Yuri thing and you try to discredit him, it's like,
Look,
okay,
how did you take that as me shitting on you? Jesus, man. Sorry.
it's
Once
that
again,
thing that the left does where it's like they hear me out, where it's almost like you're condescending in that you actually believe that.
no, all I discredited was the last part of his speech where he gave it a time frame and we have exceeded that time frame. That's all I said, dude. Like that's not me shitting on like
I
that's all I was
I
saying.
don't think that we've exceeded that time frame though.
He said 5 to 10 years after, dude. Yeah, watch the video and when
So
and
what does a dissolution of America look like? Okay, let's talk about, man, it's been like so long. Fuck.
yeah.
But what is
No,
a dissolution
I
of
actually
America
think
look
we probably should try to wrap it up, but this is definitely not a good point.
Man, so we have so many things on the docket.
Yeah, we definitely do. Yeah, so and yeah, once again, like I'm literally just it's once again a semantics argument that I'm bringing up to you. I'm trying to talk to you about exactly what a person said and um what they're talking about is so theoretical that taking them verbatim is kind of almost not fair, I guess.
Who's taking them verbatim?
Me.
Oh, okay. I'm like, because I live in the theoretical.
Yeah.
um,
So that's what I'm saying is like
well,
he gave a specific time frame that I believe he exceeded, and we will look this up and determine whether or not I'm right. Or you're
um,
right.
and so, but like, actually, there's the deeper issue that we can link back to the trauma, which is you might not think it's an issue, but I'm telling you that there is a growing group of people who do think it is an issue. And I am telling you that there are increasingly violent factions growing from left to right. And I personally don't want to get violent. Um, I will defend myself if I have to, but I want to contribute through conversation and dialogue. And so I get really agitated. I'm sorry when you don't even give me the space to try and tell you about something that I'm seeing, whether or not you agree with it even existing or being a problem. It's a pattern I have seen among a group of people. It's not just my own issues. And the Dao De Jing, you said you had ordered a copy. If you haven't, there's stuff online. And for your, anyways, okay, one of the verses, if you want something to shrink,
you must first allow it to expand. So there's all this stuff underneath the surface that people are holding in that eventually is going to just burst. And that's like the pressure that I'm talking about. And it's, I believe that the right will be violent. I believe that the left will be violent. Both sides are.
All I can say is that, like, and I'm really not pandering to you here, but and I guess I'm not entirely surprised that you've had that experience of being like shut out of conversations, but I really find it hard to understand if you're actually leveling that accusation at me as well, because I really don't see how I've like tried to not understand what you're saying, because that's literally like all I've done here is try to listen to you and understand what you're saying. I understand if you've had that experience with other people, but I am surprised if I've given you that impression.
I'm going to rewatch the video and look at like 2
Yeah,
points.
fair
There's
enough. Fair
one
enough.
point where I remember getting theatrical, because it's like, yeah.
I believe you, dude. I believe you've been shut out. I understand that, and especially fucking a couple white guys. It's like, who fucking cares? I get it.
Well, so, but that's like the interesting thing is, so do you acknowledge that there is like this sort of thing against straight white men?
It's once again one of those things where I think it's so minuscule that it's one of those small things that's being blown up, and it's like, dude, do you really feel oppressed as a white man? Because
No,
once
no,
again,
no, 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 not, don't use the word oppressed. Don't use the word oppressed. Let me
sorry.
back. No, 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 no. But because I'm being specific, because I know, like, I'm not going to name them, but I know people who are just tired of just the generic straight white male hate. Men are
Yeah.
trash.
Okay, so
Cis white men are the devil. Um, so here's the thing. Just hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me. You might not be affected by it, but I'm telling you that other people are, and it's creating an atmosphere that is leading to violence. And
I,
it's
I just, once again, we live in different places. This is why this country is so ridiculous, and like why people having political conversations who live in different states is almost like it's kind of ridiculous at this point. Um,
why.
because try to talk about state politics in Oregon and compare them to the state of Alabama.
Okay. Well,
Like, yeah. So, damn, I'm sorry. I just
so but like so here's what I'm we're not quite there, and I'm going to try one more time. You personally don't care about the generic straight white male hate. That's fine. You personally think other people shouldn't care about that either. However, humans are weird and psychology is complicated. So just because you don't think someone shouldn't, or because you think someone shouldn't be bothered by something, doesn't mean they're not going to. And so by ignoring the existence of their issue, you're ignoring a problem. I'm trying to alert you to a problem.
yeah, me acknowledging it as what I think is a minority problem isn't me completely shoving it under the rug.
I'm
That's
telling you, it's not a minority problem. There is a growing
that's
group. I'm
how I
telling you, there's a growing group of angry white men. I'm telling you. And all that you should do is be like, interesting. That is concerning for the future that I'm trying to build. Are you not concerned about angry white men?
I guess.
Is that not antithetical to
the post-capitalist world you want to help build?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get back to the first question, which I can't remember once again, which was, God damn it. Yeah, I don't know. Can you answer or ask me that question again?
I
No, that's all right. This is definitely, I think, something we should be more prepared for, this conversation.
need a secretary.
I keep notes and they're horrible. It's a nightmare. And it obviously doesn't even help that much.
I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, no, okay. So like my fear of angry white men. Yeah, I don't think that's where I was disagreeing. I think I was disagreeing on why these white men are angry.
Why do you think there is a growing number of angry white men? As broad, I'm posing that as the broadest possible framing of that question.
What the yeah, I really
Well, so I guess maybe I should ask first, do you
no, I know the answer that you want me to give.
No. I don't. There's not a specific answer I'm looking for. I should have asked first. Do you believe there is a growing number of angry white men?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Well, then the second question doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I do believe that, and I realize that anecdotal data doesn't suffice for you. But
All we do is anecdotes. We're talking about trauma.
well, I know, but then you're always like, what's the data? Where's the data? Let me see the facts. And it's like,
Once again, I'm sorry, that's just a giant straw man. When have I ever said or posed that sort of art? Once look back at this and maybe realize some of the assumptions you have about
well, you wanted the equity and outcome thing. You wanted references on that. Where's the data on that? That was anecdotal that you dismissed.
Oh, okay, you're right. I did ask for evidence in that situation. I wanted to know who was asking for equality.
And so, in like,
I guess, yeah. and that requires more than anecdotal evidence for sure. You're right. I'm sorry. I did it.
No, well, so I'm worried about all angry people, but I think I have the unique perspective of being an angry straight white male, so I want to speak from my lens. Oh, that was okay. Shit, fuck, god damn it. So I know we're trying to wrap up, but the intersectionality component, I agree that Martin Luther King was an advocate for such an ideology, and I also agree to an extent that it is an interesting philosophy to explore. However, what ties it all into this exact point is that the class oppression, or the poor white people that nobody cares about, are being overlooked because they're white, and that's creating a counter backlash to the goal of racial harmony that we're trying to accomplish in this world. And I know there are a lot of good, honest people on the ground who just want to do good and make a difference. But that's the thing, is that they don't realize they're being brainwashed and manipulated and pitted against one another.
As all, and once again, I guess I'll just go anecdotal as a poor white person. And dude, believe me, I understand you may, or like, I can't really understand your financial situation, but I have an idea because you've talked about moving from here to here and there and whatnot. That really actually could be indicative or not of your financial situation. Either way, you said you're an angry white man. Are you a poor angry white man?
This is where we'll also
Because I'm poor. I will acknowledge I'm
so
fucking poor.
everybody defines poor differently. I personally do not use the poverty line of $12,000. That's stupid.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. Well, what do you define as poor?
I not middle, like, dude, if you make less than I would, and once again, I hate to do it to a dollar amount, but I guess that's the world we live in. If you make under $30,000 a year, you are poor, period.
Well,
And
okay, and
I've
so
never made $30,000 in my life.
what? Well, let's maybe flip the question. At what level of income should we stop caring about you? At what level of income should somebody make to you to where you're like, I don't fucking care about you? What's that number?
I don't have an. Why would you not care about somebody because of how much money they make? That I don't understand the
Well,
question.
so because that's the underlying premise of the weaponization of the white guilt is that white privilege has enabled white people to obtain jobs and status and money. But the thing is, these white people don't have those things. There's the illusion that they have these things, but they don't.
Yes,
so
they do. Like, dude, white families are statistically better off than black families.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but we still haven't decided on what poor is and not.
Well, and this is
And so, and then this brings in the idea of relative wealth inequality. So if you only are able to afford Ford, what's their little car?
Focus.
Yeah, a little Ford Focus. But your boss has a fucking Lamborghini. You're going to be really pissed about that. And then this comes back to how it's really easy to manipulate the proletariat against the bourgeoisie. And so there's actual poverty and then there's relative poverty. And there's a huge gray area in between all of that. So I personally think, well, so, okay. And then there's healthcare. So you said $30,000 a year. Does your employer give you healthcare or do you have to buy healthcare from that? What state do you live in? Like, to me, oh, fuck, man.
Yes, I get it. To determine whether or not someone's poor is kind of relative, but once again, so I'm sorry that I want to include that adjective, but it's only because I want to take out the angry part because I don't consider myself to be an angry white male. I consider myself to be a poor white male.
And I'm like trying to think of the right word because I don't want to say jealous. Like I'm obviously jealous of you, but that's
Yeah, no, I feel it sucks that you're angry.
Well, and see, but that's what I'm trying to say. There is,
Because
I
I'm ignoring
believe,
things,
there's a growing number of angry people.
and I'm just ignoring it. Once again, I just don't see it. I'm not angry. I don't see a whole bunch of other angry people. I mean, I don't even get the idea that you're super angry until, like, once again, it's like, dude, you talk about the Tao and all that, and it's like, why are you so almost not content, obviously? Why are you so like eager to just, I guess, could assume this angriness? And or maybe you're not. Maybe you're doing a lot of other things to try to make yourself happy, like therapy and talking to me and whatnot. But like, I actually do. And dude, I'm really not fucking trying to pander to you, but I feel bad that you're angry about the issues that we're talking about, because I think there's definitely a certain amount of initial anger that you should have because of the injustices that are occurring. But overcoming that anger is when you start to solve those things.
I guess, like, how did Trump get elected in the first place?
Disillusionment is what I would generally say.
What fueled that disillusionment?
Our corrupt system. I mean, once again, we're just going to start talking about things.
Well,
that we
no.
agree
So, what was the emotional drive that fueled the disillusionment? What was the psychological, since we're talking about repression and normalization, what was the psychological drive that allowed people to normalize such a man to vote for him?
You think it? I don't want to say
I don't-
that. I don't want to say. I don't think that it was anger,
What do you think it was then?
disillusionment. You can.
That's not an emotion. That is a state of awareness resulting from an emotion.
Okay. Confusion. Confusion
Is also a state of awareness.
okay. Once again, we're talking about the difference between states of awareness and emotions, and
It's
I
all
think-
very relevant to trauma, and it's all relevant to the article that you sent me.
okay. So it is trauma an emotion?
No,
What is
trauma
it?
is a result of an experience.
Okay. And that makes people, as you said, that guides people's political ideologies. So you don't need an emotional answer for why people voted for Trump.
The trauma creates an emotional response. You're skipping a step. You don't jump from event, trauma, decision. You go event, trauma, whole lot of emotional responses, decision.
Okay.
Part of me thinks that you what's the term? Fuck. No, I'm not. We'll save that for a different day. Damn it.
You can say it. You're not going to hurt my feelings.
I think if a woman was rough with you in bed, you'd like it.
I like rough sex, period.
Yeah.
Wait, so when you're being rough with a girl, you don't want her to be rough back? You just want her to submit?
You are taking a lot more from what I said.
No, I think you're trying to say a lot more than what you said.
Well, so my deeper point was you I think you kind of enjoy these little back and forths where I challenge you. That's what I was getting at. I just haven't been laid in a long time, so I am lonely.
Me too.
But there's that masochist, I think. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yes.
I like pain being inflicted on me. No, I'm not a masochist.
Okay.
I'm just not. I'm not a sadist or a masochist. I like both. I like being roughed up and I like roughing up. I like rough sex, period. Like, come on.
Oh man. Are you familiar with we should this is the worst place to end it. I don't think anybody's gonna watch this. This is like 3 hours of insanity. Christopher Ryan, his podcast, The Tangentially Speaking.
No, I haven't heard of this person. No.
He's like one of my dream podcasts to like be able to.
I'm a little surprised because of all of the references that we've both gotten through tonight. That's I think the first one that I don't know. Christopher Ryan?
Yes.
Okay, we'll check him out.
Yeah, you would like him because he's often criticized because he focuses on bonobo sexuality and bonobo research opposed to chimpanzee. So he's more sex positive. But that's like if that's a dream. I want to be a guest on his podcast someday.
Yeah.
But I want to wrap up the conversation, but then we can talk about like trauma and how it influences your sexuality. And then it's like, fuck, man.
Well, that was the thing is like, I brought up my experience with sexual abuse and I almost didn't want to. I was really apprehensive. But then I did, and it's not a big deal. And this is, I guess, if you want to, like, yeah, talk about how trauma can kind of affect your sexuality. I literally was fired from a job for sexually harassing a girl. uh, Believe it or not, that happened. So yeah, they always say that abusers have generally been abused.
Is there more you want to say on that, or should we just?
No, I would like to, no, to wrap it up is they were both isolated incidences. When I was sexually abused, like fucking 20 years ago, it was an isolated incident. Like it got taken care of. It wasn't, to me, it wasn't that big a deal. Like I didn't like get, it was basically just a groping. And same thing that I got fired for. I slapped a girl on the ass at a corporate restaurant that I worked at, and I got fucking fired for it. So isolated, like
I feel
almost
like
inconsequential incident.
Joe Biden's done much worse, and I know you hate it when I do that, but I just need to raise awareness.
What do you, dude? Donald Trump was literally like homie with Epstein.
Oh, if you want to talk about Epstein, we got.
No, I don't. I want to acknowledge the fact that if either of them is a pedophile, they both are.
I will not argue that.
Thank you.
I feel like I'm like in front of senators and stuff. I will not argue that, Senator.
Oh shit.
Your mom, Senator.
All right, this is good. I'm glad we're joking again. We should probably end it. It's been a few hours.
Yes, thank you again. Holy cow.
Yeah. I don't want to turn this into a giant love fest, even though, but like, dude, I just, once again, I just find you so interesting and want to know more about the way you think. So let's please keep doing this.
Thank you very much. It means a lot because I do get emotional and worked up because I'm not making it up. I have felt shut out for years, and so hearing you say that
sucks. And I'm not pandering. That fucking sucks.
Yeah, it means a lot. Thank you very much. Like I was texting a friend earlier about how like I just was really in a dark place the past few days, all the moon and shit going on. And this, like, as soon as we got this scheduled, I wasn't expecting it. Like I started dancing and like just happier, and like this makes me happy.
Me too.
Getting to that point where we can acknowledge that we have that mutual goal of that post-capitalist society is like, my brain is like, whoa, we have a name for it now. Like we can go to another level. So I'm sorry again for being worked up. You were an incredible human, and I'm sorry. I am angry. I am an angry person, and I am working on it, and you don't deserve it. And I'm glad we talked about trauma because we need to in this culture. So thank you again. I'm sorry again.
Yeah, no. So let's do some conversing through emails on whether or not we want to post this after we've reviewed it.
Sound good.
Cool.
All right.
Much love.
Much love. Thank you. Peace.
Have a good one.